The way to win the world is to become like the world. Have we witnessed that? Are we witnessing that? And keep in mind, sometimes when I'm using the word church, I mean the bigger definition. Most of the time I mean our fellowship. But keep in mind that what happens to one reflects upon all. So when we see scandal taking place in a denominational religious organization, that flows into all of us. Because they too profess to proclaim the truth of God. And so when we see church congregations of whatever denominational stripe taking on worldlyism, a lot of people get their ideas on what church and worship is from TV and stuff. What's that one with Whoopi Goldberg? The Sister Act. Yeah, that's what church singing's like, isn't it? Right? Isn't that the popular image? And if we don't meet that expectation of the world, something's wrong with us, right? I mean, after all, we know a cappella singing is so boring. Right? Don't we know that? Wouldn't it be better if we had an organ and a big band and drums and guitars and trumpets and all that up? Wouldn't it be better? Wouldn't we attract more people? No. In fact, if you study church growth principles, this is an interesting statistic. The more conservative of us are the churches that are growing. The more liberal of us are the ones that are decreasing. Isn't that amazing? Why? I believe because there are still people in the world that admire people that stand by their convictions. This is what we believe, and the reason we believe this is because the Scriptures teach this, and we're not going to alter it. Okay? I mean, I grew up Baptist till I was about 18, and I see a Baptist church down the street close to where we used to live, and now they're having Saturday night services. I'm thinking, where, we fired a music director in my congregation when I was a kid who brought a violin on Sunday night. I mean, we had a piano and organ, but he brought a violin, and that was too liberal. Now there are congregations worshiping on Saturday. Where do they get the idea? Where did they get the idea? Pardon? Entertainment is a big one. We get our ideas from the entertainment industry. Wouldn't we attract a lot of people on Saturday night? Wouldn't we bring in some more money? Yeah?
People don't want to get up Sunday morning.
They don't want to get up Sunday night.
Go on Saturday night instead. It's easier.
You know, I have a sermon in my packet, and John just wrote an article, or put an article on Facebook about it. Do we have to worship on Christmas Day? What other day? I mean, it's the Lord's Day, like all the other 51 Lord's Days, right? But we will accommodate. When I was out in West Virginia, a gentleman in another congregation saw me in downtown one day, and town was 3,000. He said, "I see you people still meet on Wednesday night. When I drive by, I see you're still Bible study on Wednesday." I said, "You don't have to drive by. Come on in." But a lot of churches, including Churches of Christ, have quit meeting on Wednesday night. Why? It costs a lot to heat and light up this electricity and everything else to this big building for just so few people. Why should we bother? Huh? Interesting. Because we want to please the world sometimes, and we want to do worldly things and cost efficiencies and all those studies. Forget what God says. And so there's always been this fundamental, irreconcilable incompatibility between Christian values and worldly values. Always has been, always will be. The Apostle John is writing about that. In 1 John 2, verse 15 says, "Do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him or them. James, in his book, I forget to mark on which ones. Did I give James as a reading? No, I didn't. James chapter 4, verse 4 says, "You adulterous people," and remember, he's writing to the church. James is writing to Christians. He says, "You adulterous people, don't you know that friendship with the world means enmity against God? Therefore, anyone who chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God." Tell another little story. Preaching at a congregation back in Illinois, and a couple of our members had season passes at Branson, Missouri. I went once, and I'm not a Branson person. I'm just not. And I joke, the Branson Church of Christ had an opening for a minister, and I jokingly said to him, I said, "I think I'm going to apply there. I might see you guys more often." And they said to me, "You know, we want to go to heaven, but we're having too much fun right now here." And I'm going, wow, you know, that's an attitude. I'm having too much fun here. I'm all for having fun. I had a great time Sunday night at the party. But, man, I tell you, I want to go to heaven. I'm not hurrying it along. I'm ready to go when the Lord wants me to go. But I wouldn't trade anything in this world for heaven. Wouldn't trade anything at any time. But that's an attitude. Do I have to worship on Christmas Day if it falls on Sunday? Do I have to do this? Do I have... You know, it's the love of the world. We have to be very careful. I'm going to ask you a question. We're going to get into this lesson here tonight, lesson 5. Who's the current ruler of the world? Anybody know? Pardon? Nero? Who's got Luke chapter 4? There you go.
And he led him up and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said to him, "I will give you all this domain and its glory, for it has been handed over to me, and I give it to whomever I wish."
Satan tells Jesus during the temptations that I'll give you all these kingdoms of the earth. It's been given to me, but I'll give it to you if you'll just bow down and worship me. Right now, Satan rules the earth, the world. Okay, and that's just one of the texts. There's a lot of them that tell us that he is the prince of darkness, the prince of the earth. My brother and I used to talk a lot about how Satan is shaking the foundations of this country. What we're seeing is evil, and there's no denying it. Now, we are to love people, but we're going to hate that sin that Satan. I hate Satan. I hate what he does to people. But I understand he has blinded them to truth. And unless we bring that light of the Word into their lives, they're not going to escape the darkness. And that's a fact. Satan has blinded this age. And so what we're seeing is exactly what the Bible teaches. People calling good, what? Evil. And evil, good. Truth, a lie. Lie, a truth. And we're seeing that. And so we have these two things. Now, when we say the world, what we mean by that, what John means anyway, is the world system, the world way of living, the world thinking, the world philosophy. He's not talking about this dirt. God created this planet. It's not the planet he created because of sin. We've spoiled it. But he's not talking about the physical earth. He's talking about the world system, the way the way things are in the world. And John says anyone who loves this world hates the Father. You have to make a choice. Okay, let's get into let me read the text. 1 John 2, 15 to 17. Do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For everything in the world, the cravings of sinful man, the lust of his eyes, and the boasting of what he has and does, comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and its desires pass away, but the man who does the will of God lives forever. John is writing to a group of Christian churches, members of the church congregations, who are facing stiff competition from the world. A lot of worldly philosophies, a lot of false prophets, a lot of false teachers are coming around telling them lies. And John's warning them, don't listen. Now he's already told, yes, okay. He's already told these Christians to love God. Last time study, he said, love your brothers and sisters. Now he says something we're not to love. Don't love the world's system. Okay? All right, openings. What makes television commercials and other advertisings so appealing? So people say, well, they don't affect me. That's not true. They don't spend millions of dollars on advertising because it doesn't work. It does work. Okay? It works very well. Ask my friend who had a pet rock. Okay? Advertising works. It works very well. Why? What makes it so effective? Are you the group of people that don't think it's effective? Let me come out and see what car you drive and what kind of house you live in and what kind of clothes you have. Huh? What makes it effective? Why does it work? Yes, Toby. It appeals to our pride, our egos, our desires, our wants. You see very few advertisements for our needs, a lot to our wants. People that write advertising, commercials, whatever type of advertising, are students of human psychology. They know you. How many have this thing at home called the internet? You do a search on Google or something, and all of a sudden you get certain ads popping up, don't you? How do they know? How do they know that ad? Because they track your searches. They know you. They know us because they study us. They know what motivates us, what drives us. What else? Why are they effective? You need to know your enemy, folks. Why are they effective? If you don't know why they're effective, you'll fall for their scams. They know our psychology. What motivates us? What drives us? What else?
There's a jingle, there's a song, there's a tone of the commercial that it stays in your head.
Oh, yeah, jingles.
It's a theme of the commercial that sometimes
I am stuck on, stuck on me. Yeah. Do ads show sad people or happy people? Do ads show people having fun or people living miserable, terrible, depressing lives? Promise great things. If you'll buy this or do this or go here, you will be happy. What's the happiest place on earth? Disneyland. Okay, where you going? Disneyland. Happy. The world sells happiness. Church sells joy.
The other thing they do is not only appeal to your desire, but they convince you that this is attainable. It's within your reach. You can have this.
We can have it all, right? You can attain this. It's not out of reach. Buy now, pay later. You can have it now. What's our national debt? What's our personal debts, credit card debts? They're saying that's going to be the next big thing that blows up is credit card debt. People are falling behind, major time. You can have the good life. You can have it. It's in your grasp. And they sell that, don't they? And people buy it. How many of you deserve a break today? Who says that? McDonald's. Or who says you can have it your way? Burger King. They prey on our weaknesses, our pride, our greed, our lust, our guilt. You know, why would you deny your children these wonderful things that all the other children have? What kind of parent are you? Right? And, of course, we got to keep the economy rolling by buying and buying and buying and buying. If we stop buying, what happens? We'll be out of a job if it's our industry. And so this whole worldly system is geared to entice you to live the worldly life. We don't teach a whole lot on living austere, simple lives of, fasting is not a topic we talk about much, especially at holiday time. But the Bible talks about it a lot. Prayer and fasting. Selection of elders, prayer and fasting. A lot of things. Right now, I would suggest that if we're looking for a minister, we ought to be doing some prayer and fasting as a congregation, as individuals. These are serious things. It will make us happy, right? And who doesn't want to be happy? Anything wrong with being happy? Nope. It depends on the cost. It will take away all your pains and suffering. Right? Is there a reason why we're seeing in our culture today so many states legalizing opiates, drugs? Well, one of the selling points is to take away your pain. Right? Forget all your troubles. Come on, be happy. All right. Let's look at the sidebar over here. Philippians 4, 11 and 12. Paul writing says, I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have. To have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. Okay. And you know, it's legal to talk in the church building, so you can talk. What's the definition of contentment? Paul says, I've learned to be content. What is contentment?
English definition is desiring no more than you need.
Okay, good definition. Desiring no more than what you need. That's one of the good definitions of it. What is another definition of contentment? How do you know when you're content?
Greek word is defined as satisfied.
Satisfied. A state of happiness and satisfaction. Satisfied. Paul says, I have learned to be content whether I've got a whole bunch or nothing. Whether I'm in good health or poor health, whether I am well fed or I'm hungry, I have learned to be satisfied. Now, does that mean that we're willing, contentment, does that mean that we're willing to accept less? That we're, okay, I know, it's just a feeling of, okay, don't ask for anything, because why don't you just want what you got? Well, wanting what you got's a good thing, but can we not ask the Lord in prayer for things? Of course we can. In fact, we'll see Paul did. Okay? Being in a state, I like this definition, being in a state of peaceful happiness. Peaceful happiness. It's the absence of worry about who you are, what you have, or the condition of your life. Contentment. I'm happy with who I am, what I have. If the Lord wants to give me more, I'll gratefully take that blessing. If He wants to take it all away, Job, I will not curse God. Right? He's the potter. We're the clay. If we submit to Him, whatever He desires to do with our life, we are happy with that. We are content with that. For we are not our own, right? We've been bought with a price. Somebody says, well, I'll serve in this way, but I won't serve that way. Well, wait a minute. Don't ever say that, because you don't know. God's going to send you that way. Okay? Learn to be content with serving the Lord however He desires to use you. Contentment. Paul says that's the secret to the good life, the happy life. Learning to be content, being at peace with who you are and what you have. Now think, and the condition of your life. Think of those conditions, who you are, what you have, and your condition, your state of being, health or whatever in life, as opposed to what the world preaches. You can be better, right? You can have more. In fact, you deserve more. And no one should have to suffer. I love it when some health and welfare teachers and preachers say, Christians don't have enough faith or else they wouldn't suffer. Tell that to the martyrs who died for Christ. Did they die in a state of peaceful contentment? I believe they did. I believe they were happy with who they were in Christ. I don't think they would reject Jesus for the sake of worldly pleasure. I don't think James did. I don't think Stephen did. I don't think anyone who has ever been a martyr for the cause of Christ or given up something for the cause of Christ. It's peaceful. It's an inner being of being one, knowing that you're walking in the will of the Lord. Now you have, yes, Carolyn. Is what? Depression, yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, how does that happen? Well, number one, we live in a fallen world. This is not the world God designed. He designed a perfect world, a good world. Sin entered the world and caused all kinds of problems. One of which is depression. I will tell you, I may be speaking out of turn here, I don't know with John sitting here, but most preachers I know have suffered depression at time and melancholy and the downs. My name is Downs, but I'm not. It's one of my lessons. But yeah, because we suffer all the things that humans suffer. We're not exempt from those things. The question is, we have an anchor that helps us through it. I have a sign in my office. Well, it's not my office anymore. It's at home. But it says the quickest way through the darkness is not running away from it, but running through it. We accept life because we understand Satan is the ruler of this world and we don't belong to him. We belong to God. And I can do all things through him who gives me the strength, strengthens me. Do I like it? No. Am I happy? Ha 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 ha. No. Christ doesn't guarantee happiness. He guarantees joy. And there is a big difference. Okay. Contentment, Socrates, a philosopher a long time ago, wrote, contentment is natural wealth. Luxury is artificial poverty. I kind of like that one. Another one is, contentment is not the fulfillment of what you want, but the realization of how much you already have. Think about living in the United States of America and being malcontent, dissatisfied with what you have. Wow. We had a good preacher friend out in West Virginia, and they supported a mission work in Jamaica, not in the resort area, up in the mountains, and they'd go down every year to help them with their VBS, and the preacher and his son were flying back, and he looked down at his son's feet, and he said, son, where are your tennis shoes? And he said, Dad, I have lots of tennis shoes at home. Those kids had no shoes. Wow. Think about how many of you, and I know I'm talking mostly to an older crowd, how many of you grew up in a 3-bedroom home with 1 bath? Yeah. Would you buy that house today? No way. Minimum 2 baths, 2.5. Carport, garage. We didn't have a garage or a carport. And we have 4 boys. And a mom and dad, 3-bedroom home, 1 bath. Figure that one out. I don't know how we did it. I don't know how mom and dad did it. Realization of how much we already have. And not thinking that contentment is, we got to fulfill all our wants. Boy, we're not getting anyway. This quote I liked, resentment comes from looking at others. Contentment comes from looking at God. One of the quotes that's been in my head for many, many years by a comedian who's no longer liked because of his bad behavior. First name was Bill, had a routine. He said, God made a tree and said, that's good. Man makes a refrigerator and says, amazing. God makes a bird and says, that's good. Man makes a car and says, marvelous. The adjectives. And how we look at the world and say, this is better than this. We're comparing things. Contentment comes from looking at God. What did Jesus have? No place to lay his head. Died in a borrowed tomb. But we're better than Jesus, so let's get off of that. A couple of Bible verses on contentment. Who has Hebrews 13:5?
Keep your lives free from love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you.
And 2 Corinthians 12, this is the longer one, verses 6 through 10.
I got that one, Ken. For if I do wish to boast, I will not be foolish, for I will be speaking the truth. But I refrain from this, so that no one will credit me with more than he sees in me or hears from me. Because of the surpassing greatness of the revelations, for this reason, to keep me from exalting myself, there was given me a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me, to keep me from exalting myself. Concerning this, I implored the Lord 3 times that it might leave me. And he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for power is perfected in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, I will rather boast about my weakness, so that the power of Christ may dwell in me. Therefore, I am well content with weaknesses, with insults, with distresses, with persecutions, with difficulties, for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then I am strong.
Yeah, this is the same Paul that said, I've learned this to be content. I want to do one more and then we'll close it out. Back, second page, what restrictions should we place on our affections? Verse 15. Do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. What restriction should we put on our affections? Any?
Anything that supersedes God in our love.
Exactly. Anything that supersedes or displaces God from being first in our life is a restriction. Doesn't mean we can't have things. Lots of the people in the Bible had lots of things. Lots of people in the Bible were rich. Nothing wrong with that. It's not the riches, it's the love of it. But who has Matthew 6:24, and then we'll close it out this evening. Anybody got Matthew 6?
No one can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth.
Yeah, we have to make that own individual decision in our own lives when we choose where our affections will be. Am I pursuing this because I love this more than God? Then you're choosing to love the world more than God. Okay? Can we still love God and have a Cadillac? Yeah. Okay? You're going to have a Chevy too, but, there's nothing that says we can't have stuff. It's not the thing, it's the love of the thing, the love of the world that causes the harm. And sometimes that gets us in a lot of trouble because, I don't want to preach a bunch of sermons. We'll see you next week. Thank you. Birds of the field, okay? They don't, there's a whole lot of lessons on there. And one of the problems, I'm gonna do this. One of the problems in giving in the church is people have indebted themselves so much to the world that they don't have enough to give to the God and His work. They say, well, I can't afford it. Why? Because you've given so much of yourself to the world. Okay?